What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Trend the Jets Talks. I'm your host, Will Parkinson, at Will Pilot on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Will Parkinson, NFL, and YouTube, all 32 podcasts, the whole 9 yards. Happy, Sunday morning here. This episode's coming out a little bit later than expected as of yesterday. We're going to talk a little bit about camp yesterday, Jets inter-squad scrimmage, green and white. Haason Reddick, slightly touch on that. A little bit of the Jets camp approach in terms of hitting, full pads, and intensity of practices. And also want to kind of just touch on quickly a couple camp battles to watch the rest of the summer. I'll be tweeting out my 53-man prediction, as this pod comes out. I want to talk a little bit about, the Reddick situation quickly first. Obviously, again, we've been talking about this since April, but more specifically the last 10 days. We're now 10 days, 11 days as of this morning into camp. The Jets are off today. Reddick has obviously foregone quite a bit of money in terms of workout bonuses, fines, all those different types of things. And at this point, obviously, I thought August 1st, this thing would be done personally, just because, the money obviously got pretty big after day 5 of camp. Teams down to full pads, inter-squad scrimmages this week. The Jets need Haason Reddick. Haason Reddick obviously needs to come back and play to make his money. This needs to get cleaned up, and if this is one of those situations the Jets cave, so be it. I know that's, not what everyone wants to hear. And I've seen a lot of Haason Reddick's not actually that good. Classic discourse when a player, fans and respectfully fans of a team want to, don't want to see their, players, teams pay their players money and all that stuff. And Jets fans have no attachment to Haason Reddick. He's never played for them, obviously, and things like that. So I get all that. That said, Reddick needs to be paid. He needs to be in camp. The Jets need him. The defensive line depth is nowhere near the same without Haason Reddick. He not only raises their ceiling, but as well their floor. So yeah, again, tomorrow will be August 5th. Joe and Connor proclaimed that their kind of time to panic day. It probably honestly already feels like it's a bit of time to panic, just from the aspect of, not panic in terms of the season's going to be a disaster and all that stuff, but he needs to get in camp. You want to get him in shape, over the next month and make sure, he's ready to go. You're going to need him week 1. Against an awesome 49ers team. So you hope this gets done by the time, if you're listening on Monday morning, you hope this is done and, over the weekend. Want to kind of transition to training camp yesterday and then just talk a little bit of the 53-man roster, just a quick 10 or 15 minutes here. We'll have episodes. Ty Butler will be on the feed. We'll have, potentially Rich later, this week and a few others. I was out of practice yesterday. I was out in practice a couple days this week. Yesterday was much, much better. I thought all around from the Jets. Practice I was at on Monday was off and off day, first day of full pads, very sloppy. A lot of different things going on. Yesterday, again, a lot of guys, some people having veteran rest days, Tyron Smith, Morgan Moses, Sauce Gardner, unfortunately lost a friend over the weekend. So, flight getting back, was not able to practice. Obviously, condolences to, his friend and his family. Malik Taylor was out yesterday with a shoulder. Michael Carter an ankle. Michael Carter update. He'd be good to go. Talking with people around the building. He is feeling much better and is feeling good. So that's obviously trending in the positive direction. A few other injuries there, but generally speaking, the Jets are in a decent spot. From that perspective, some cramping yesterday. Malachi Corley cramped at the end of practice. Izzy Bonaconda as well. Hot day out. The Jets ran 150, 160 plays. First team offense ran at least 60 or 65 that I saw. 18-play drive, a 7-play drive, an 11-play drive. If not, more than that. And then obviously the 2s and 3s got their own reps. The Jets we had to see full, kind of full throttle. Some of the kickoff stuff yesterday. Some guys that stood out. I thought. First off, Alan Lazard's been a topic of conversation all camp so far. And, outside of one practice has looked really good. Does he struggle with drops at times? He still struggles with it. The hands aren't as consistent as you maybe want them to be. He's obviously not a guy who's going to be an elite separator by any means. But the Jets weren't expecting him to be an elite separator. Anyone that's watched Lazard over the last, 5 years knows that's not his game. He's obviously a big body, contested catch guy. Rodgers trusts him. He knows the offense. He's taken on much more of a leadership role. It looks like he's, talking with guys and involved. Rob Mazal talked about him being involved in special teams and things like that, trying to earn that, kind of respect and earn that role back on this roster. Right now, Alan Lazard's a starter on this team. Mike Williams is not, obviously healthy at the moment. He's obviously rehab, and Alan Lazard will be starting week 1 if Mike Williams is not, not fully cleared. And even if he is cleared, Lazard will probably play more than him. So that's just a forewarning. This is going to happen. what I think I've liked the most out of Lazard is some fire and energy. Yesterday, um, you know, he's got, made a couple of nice catches, made some plays, thought he was playing really well. The Jets, Rodgers goes to him on a similar throw to what Zach Wilson hit Lazard on in the Chiefs game. Lazard's not able to come up with a great defensive play. Comes back on the 2-minute drill, throws a jump ball, go ball to him. Brandon Eccles, great play. Eccles gets up, throws a haymaker, punches Lazard in the face. Didn't really make much contact, but it was a impressive windup for that kind of punch. And look, next play, Rodgers right back to Lazard. Same play. Lazard makes the big conversion. 7 seconds left. Jets are able to kick the field goal in the 2-minute drill. So he's trying to build his confidence up. He's trying to get him right because the Jets know that, unfortunately, with the way things are, currently constructed, he's going to play quite a bit. So I would forewarn, he has been much better. He did have a couple drops on Monday that led to interceptions. So you get what you get with Lazard, and the good and the bad. Other guys that stood out, Zaire Barnes and Jarek Bernard Converse are both guys who last year were pretty much non-factors, obviously, pretty much weren't active in any games. I honestly don't remember a single rep either one of them took at any practice I was at for training camp, regular season, any of that different stuff. Barnes had one of the biggest hits of camp so far. He decleated Izzy Abanikanda in the middle of the hole and he's played a lot during camp. He's been on specials. He's a guy that looks like he could potentially be a rotational guy at, down the line with the Jets. Obviously this group has molded, many linebackers before. He's a guy who, again, the pick was super confusing and obviously contributed nothing last year. And I'm not expecting him to contribute anything this year. I'm not going to be surprised if he makes the team, though. I think he's a guy who might take that 4th linebacker spot from a Chaz Surratt. The Jets carry 5 linebackers. I'm inclined to say yes, because I think from a special teams perspective, Surratt and Barnes, will be key contributors. Sherwood, I believe, and Ashton Davis are 2 guys that are, personal protectors on punt and things like that. So, he definitely stood out. I thought Braylon Allen stood out again. He stood out all camp. Once he gets moving, it's really hard to bring him down. Ran through some arm tackles. There was a really nice play to open camp. It opened yesterday, a couple runs in a row of kind of some outside zone stuff with, Allen and Hall off that left side. Olu, John Simpson, Tittman, working first to second level. That was really good to see. Rodgers was really good again yesterday. I thought, there's some drops and things like that, but I think Rich Smeeney had him at 19 to 30, officially from a team perspective. But I thought he was really good. There was some drops in there. Kenny Yeboah had a pretty brutal drop. There was a couple other ones in there. But again, Rodgers has looked really good throughout camp. I thought, the 2 days before that, I think he had 11 touchdowns and 23 snaps in the red zone. So again, a lot of positives takeaways. TJ Mosley, Quincy Williams looked really good. Quentin Williams got a lot of pressure. Jermaine Johnson was really good in the run game yesterday. I thought, really stood out, in my mind. Tanzel Smart, Camp Hero, the David Clowney Award nominee, for sure, had a really good day yesterday. So there was a lot of kind of positives to take away. I thought JBC, again, has been really impressive the last couple of days. Played in the slot yesterday a lot, played outside, has the ability, obviously, to play safety. Jason Bradley, beautiful touchdown down the left sideline, was really nice to see. The Jets' first-team offense did not score a touchdown. That said, again, going against this starting Jets defense, and I thought, Jets defense looked pretty good. I thought the starting offense, the snaps were still an issue. It's something that Joe Tittman is going to have to get cleaned up. It's most likely the yips. I asked some personnel people around the NFL that scouted Tittman in college, hey, was this an issue you noticed at Wisconsin? Is this something that would have given you pause drafting him? Any of these different things? Just to ask. This is 2 years ago, obviously, and something a couple times happened last year. Not a big deal. They said, no, I didn't see any issues on tape. That's not even something we really thought about. So it's all shotgun snaps. They're all high. It's not as if they're left and right and all over the place and skipping them. They're all just high. And I don't know if it's being too high in his stance. It's getting too excited. Salo alluded to potentially kind of this getting amped up, a little too amped up. Whatever it is, it's going to have to get cleaned up. Robert Sala's now talked about it multiple times, and I think they're all a little frustrated where this is at. I think it's becoming way too big of a story. Again, yeah, it's at other camps and things like that. You've seen Dolphins Twitter, losing their mind and other teams, but it is an issue, and it's an issue because, again, I can't reiterate this enough. This Jets offense is not going to play much, if at all preseason. They're going to be going into week 1 in hostile territory in San Francisco against one of the league's elite defenses. They need every rep they can possibly get with that starting unit. Good to see Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses practice in full. The first time they've had team drills with the first team offense and all that different stuff. the snaps have to be better. You can't be, the Jets were driving yesterday. I believe it was on an 18-play drive. Joe Tippmann snaps at 30 yards over Rodgers' head, and obviously the drive's over. So those are ones that, again, you got to get them cleaned up. So again, I don't think anything to be overly concerned with Tippmann. That said, it is becoming a serious thing, and it needs to be fixed. That's one of the biggest takeaways from yesterday. Which again, if that's one of your biggest takeaways, that's not a bad thing. But again, needs to be fixed and needs to be changed. Some other things that stood out. Again, this is by all accounts the most intense practice the most intense Jets practice I've been in, honestly, in a while. And this is something I kind of wanted to touch on. And again, I don't want to get too deep into this, but the Jets have kind of changed their approach this year in terms of training camp. Obviously, we all know injuries have been a huge thing. The last couple of years in camp, generally speaking, outside of the Carl Lawson injury, which again, freak injury, Achilles, knock on wood, the Jets have experienced not a lot of camp injuries. It's been a ton in the regular season. It feels like the second the season starts, they start dropping like flies. But during camp, everyone's healthy and Jets Twitter's happy and the coaches are happy. There's not been a lot of injuries, sometimes soft tissue, but not too much. The Jets have kind of gone with a more old school approach this year. Robert Saleh's talked a little bit about it publicly, talking with people kind of behind the scenes. They've changed the approach a little bit this year. The approach is we're gonna hit a shit ton during camp. We're gonna be full pads a lot. We're gonna work a little bit more of an old fashioned training camp, more 90s, early 2000s training camp. We want to be able to go into the regular season. If we experience some, an ankle here or there for a week or two, a shoulder for a week or two during camp, guys are beat up a little bit, and then you get that rest and that, the Jets kind of have almost like a week and a half, almost 2 weeks off between the end of the preseason and that Niners game. You got that kind of mini 4 or 5 week, bye period, and then obviously going to game week and then playing out on Monday. The Jets kind of beating the shit out of each other in camp. Been some fights, been a lot of hitting, been intense practices, a lot of trash talk, whether it's Tony Adams or Brandon Eccles and Solomon Thomas talking a bunch, or on the offensive side of the football, Lazard and Garrett Wilson and Brees and all these guys. It's an interesting approach because the whole point is to try to build their body up. So when they get into week one and they got to go full throttle, their bodies are not confused. They're not used to 20 plays of, full pads. They're used to that 60, 70 play, offensive, kind of offensive practice the Jets ran yesterday, very much like a game in terms of, kept time and play clocks. And I know the refs weren't there, which caused some stirring and whatever it may be. But I like the approach on the face of it. Again, you got to monitor it, things like that. You just want to make sure you don't want to go too far overboard. But I like the interesting approach of let's change things up. Let's maybe take some of our bumps and bruises in camp, but we hit the ground running the regular season. We're ready to go. We're ready to start firing and hitting people week one. On both sides of the football, soft tissue wise, ligament wise, all these different things, like our bodies are ready. And it'll be interesting to see if that approach pays off. It's just something I wanted to kind of discuss. Last thing here before we wrap, and again, I'll be back on the feed next week. I've full three TOJ and TOJ talks and 2 all 32 pods with Mike and everything like that. Last thing I guess I'll say on the 53-man roster, a couple battles to watch as we get into camp, deeper into camp here with the preseason games. Biggest one to me is the 6 wide receiver spot. Did the Jets take Irv Charles, who is, maybe keep him as the special teamer, can play outside. Again, receiver is not why he's on the roster. He's on the roster because of special teams, ability. Do the Jets prioritize that? Do they prioritize a Jason Brownlee, a UDFA fine that, contributed some last year, has had some really nice moment during camp, but you obviously want to continue to see him flash? Or do they go with a Malik Taylor, guy who knows the system, can play inside, outside, more speed, veteran type that, Rodgers has some rapport with? I tend to think they'll lean with Brownlee. Taylor's already gotten banged up during camp, although he was running with the ones, previously. So that'll be an interesting one. McGregor, at the edge spot, Watts, Tack, Michael Clemens, those guys kind of fighting probably for 2 spots. I think I would give the edge right now, McGregor. The coaching staff loves Clemens. I don't see it personally. I'm not an NFL coach. I just don't see it on tape. I never have. I don't get it. I think they like the size at which he plays with, but I don't know that he really offers much, of a ceiling. And the floor is quite low when it goes out there and it's Clemens, Solly, some of the rotational pieces. It's not always great, especially in the run game. So, that's a battle to watch. Again, I think McGregor stood out the most. His long arm in a couple of different instances has been really nice. I think, again, I've liked what I've seen from Olu, Mitchell, and Warren. It feels like Mitchell and Olu have kind of won the left tackle and right tackle jobs as of now. Warren's had some decent reps. He's had some okay, some not so good. So he's been much better than I expected. But again, Max Mitchell's actually had a pretty decent camp, and Olu's looked very much like, he could go in and start day one if needed. So and the other battle, obviously, is going to be that running back 4 versus keeping a 4th tight end, or keeping a fullback, whether the Jets bring Bottom back into camp at some point, or they keep a Zach Kuntz, or do they, keep Izzy, or what do they do there? Obviously, Tariq Cohen retiring. So kind of a lot to keep your eye on. Again, kind of overall takeaways, I thought really intense, really good practice. Joint practice is coming up this week. If anyone's going to be there, give me a shout out. I'll be out there as well. So again, appreciate everybody for listening. Make sure you guys are tuned into everything else on the feed. I will talk to you guys later this week. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.